Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Dan-Mabry Project. This episode is with Michael Davis. Michael is the founder of Railway Coffee in Ruston, Louisiana. Michael got my attention. I've seen Michael around for a long time. He was on Kendrick Jones' podcast, and they did it at Railway one time, and I went, and I did not get to meet Michael at that point. I had never met Michael up until this interview. So, but I recently saw a bunch of employees leaving Railway, people that work there quitting, college students that were in the middle of the quarter and quitting their job, and it was like 8 or 10 of them. It was enough to get my attention, and I then found out that Michael chose to leave Railway, and that was the reason that they were leaving. And I just reached out to Michael to try to get his side of the story, and we get into that a little bit. We really talk a lot about the history of Railway and how it started, and the process of growth, and ultimately him choosing to leave, and what his plans are for the future. So I really enjoyed sitting down and talking to Michael. It was really kind of him to open up to me, and just really appreciative of him and his support. And I really enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing what he has going in the future, honestly. He already built one business, so what's stopping him from doing it again? For those of you who don't know me, I recently, or haven't heard, I am now 3 weeks homeless, jobless, quit my job, sold my house to pursue my dreams of videography and podcasting. So I would appreciate your support. It's real easy to support me. Just subscribe to this YouTube channel, like this video, leave a comment, share it. That always helps. I have stickers of my little logo. If you want them, hit me up on Instagram at Dan.Mabry. I also have a Patreon account, and, as the kids say, my Venmo is always open. So, PayPal, Cash App, I got them all. Hit me up if you want to help me out. But if you want to be a part of this or know someone that would be cool to interview, please don't hesitate to mention that to me. I do plan on traveling around pretty soon, and experimenting with vlogging and those types of things. Anyway, I'm going to quit rambling, get to the interview. Thank you for all of your support. I love you all. Michael Davis. He's the man. Michael Davis, thanks for coming on. Appreciate you making time out of your day. I guess I just want to put it out there to the public like I just did you. Obviously you were a part of Railway, started Railway Coffee. I was never a big Railway guy, never a coffee guy to begin with, but there was clearly a couple weeks ago, some big things happening with you and Railway, and I guess I don't really know how to describe it. I guess it is the community that maybe you built there. To see 10 plus people that work there maybe leave, young people in college, and it wasn't the end of a quarter or anything. It wasn't a transition time, and just to see all these kids leaving Railway, I was like, man, something is up. So I guess we'll start with kind of the how did Railway start? Where
Okay.
did the idea come from? What was the process?
So this goes back maybe like 5 years or so. I was, you said earlier that you'd been working for your dad recently. So
Yeah.
I was in a season where um, I had gone to school at Tech, graduated '09 in sociology, and then kind of realized quickly, like, well, I loved the coursework and I loved the subject matter, but um, there weren't really any sociology jobs, especially at that point in time, coming off the heels of 2008, where the big financial crisis and a
Yeah.
lot of people were graduating college and then finding out that there's no job, even for like degrees that usually walk right into a job, like engineering or other things like that.
Mm-hmm.
People were just having a hard time. So um, during that time, I met now my wife, Jana, and she was graduating spring of '09. I was set to graduate fall of '09. And we knew pretty quickly that we wanted to get married. And I was working part-time for my dad at the time while I was in school. He has a local commercial construction company. And just kind of talked to him about what would it look like if I went full-time for you. And I never really thought that I would be doing that as a career. I ended up working for him for about 9 years when it was all said and done. But maybe halfway through that, about 2014, I went back to school to get my MBA because I knew, like, I want to do something else. I think I want to start something and build something. Don't really know what. But I just knew that, clocking in at 8 to 5 job where it's mostly desk work wasn't going to be for me long term.
Yeah.
So at the time, I can remember I was probably around 240, 245, heaviest I've ever been. Start going to the doctor, young married, we're having a few kids, and like looking at, okay, I need to be around for a while to have a life with these kids and with my wife. And the doctor's like, look, you got to get rid of some sugar, man. So I'm looking at my diet closely, getting rid of sugar, getting rid of processed stuff, trying to anyway. And where the coffee comes into that is the Christmas previous to that, I got like $100 worth of Starbucks gift cards. So I'm cruising through there like, give me this caramel flan latte, or give me like all their juiced up sugary stuff,
Right.
which tasted great at the time to me. But looking at like, okay, I got to cut out sugar and processed stuff. I got to start drinking black coffee. And I didn't really care for it. I didn't care for black coffee anywhere. It was not a dig at Starbucks or anybody else. I just couldn't find black coffee that I liked. I remember like going to Jana's family's house at any kind of holiday. They're always making coffee after the meal. Sometimes they'll make a pot. Sometimes they'd have the K-cups, and everyone had their go-to, like, oh yeah, mine is the donut shop or whatever. They had their favorite.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tried all of them, and I never could find one that I just loved drinking. And I guess I was looking for this kind of an experience more than just a drink. So around that time, this was probably the fall of 2014. We have 2 little kids under 2. I'm in school getting my MBA, and I'm watching The Profit, which is a show kind of like Shark Tank, but it's not a pitch show. It's where people who have struggling businesses come in and there's an investor and they kind of fix the problems or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
So one of them was a coffee roasting business. And I'm like, man, this is fascinating. And they're kind of showing a little bit behind the scenes of what goes on in a coffee roasting business. And then I started Googling like coffee roasting, good coffee, whatever. And I land on the industry homepage for the Specialty Coffee Association of America. Now it's just SCA. It's a global trade organization. And start reading about these small farms around the world in all these different coffee growing countries, mostly owned by families, the ones that I were reading about anyway. Family farms have been in these families for generations, and that's their livelihood. They grow their coffee every year. If they have a bad crop, they don't have a product to sell, or they have to sell it at a discounted rate. So that got my attention. And then on like the consumer side, the U.S. side, I guess, reading about these small roasters who are buying from these farmers, roasting in small batches, paying attention to the quality of the beans that they're buying from the farmers, paying attention to how they're roasting it to really highlight the natural flavors that are there. All coffee, depending on where it's grown, how it's processed, altitude, etc. There's different flavors that could be present. And it struck me that they were talking about coffee almost like you would talk about wine. They were talking about the tasting notes. They would talk about the mouthfeel, the finish. And it was clearly an experience to a lot of these people. I didn't grow up going to coffee shops. Even in high school, I didn't go to coffee shops. I was very new to coffee, but I guess what got me in it was like not really enjoying it the way that I wanted to, and then looking for like, how can I enjoy this more? So I got online and found all this equipment, home roasting equipment. So we got like a little countertop home roaster, and I could roast about 4 ounces of coffee at a time, which is about a third of a normal bag.
Okay.
So I start just playing with it, letting people try it. People liked it, and it wasn't because of anything I was doing. I was just getting good coffee.
Let me stop you. So,
okay.
Like roasting the beans, it's obviously like what you're talking about is like almost like micro batching.
Oh,
like
for sure.
Super tiny.
Yeah.
So like, are you able to roast that and then like store them?
Yeah.
Or was that like something that you roasted them and you immediately ground it?
I had just little bags that I'd put them in.
Yeah.
So I'd roast like 3 batches and make it a full bag and then seal it up.
Okay.
So that was around this time, actually, 2014, around Thanksgiving. So fast forward, I just kept roasting as much as I could, selling it to people who wanted to buy it. Started doing the farmers market in that following spring and summer. And that's where we really started to gain some traction, being able to talk to the community. That was one of my favorite things is like, I'm doing pour overs and people come up and they want to like, what are you doing? How is this different? And so then we get the opportunity to tell them this coffee is from this country, grown by this family farm. And I roasted it in my house and did this and that. And then they're interested, and then they can hopefully, if I'm doing my job right, taste a difference in the quality of the cup.
Right.
And then I think it's the relationship that keeps them coming back. So for that season, Railway was a farmer's market booth. We did a little bit of online stuff, but really the heart of our business was at the farmer's market. So shout out to the farmer's market. They were sort of an incubator for us, if you will. And I know that they really want that for a lot of people if it applies. It doesn't apply to some, but it's a cool little avenue for some.
Yeah. I guess I don't want you to like give away your trade secrets here, but can you talk about like how you source the beans?
Oh yeah. So early on I was buying from like a middleman who was buying from the farmers and then packaging in small bags and marking up the price way too much.
Was that just something that you just like sourced out?
Yeah.
And, like,
just Google.
Upon?
Yeah. So then I'm like, okay, how do I buy it for real from the farms or from importers? So there's this huge network of importers who are connected with the farms in all these countries. And usually if you're dealing with an importing company, they have staff whose job it is to go on these sourcing trips. So they'll go to the farm, start, cultivate a relationship with the farmer. They'll do what's called a cupping, which is a really scientific way to test the quality of the coffee. And then also, make sure you're consistently roasting it throughout the process. But they'll go cup with those farmers to make sure that it meets certain standards for their market. And then once all that's done, then they handle all the import, export, customs, etc. And they would house their coffees in a variety of warehouses in the U.S. So I was able to say, hey, Joe, who works at Royal Coffee New York, I'm interested in a coffee from this country. Can you help me out in this price range with this flavor profile? Can you help me out? Yeah, man, here's 2 or 3 to pick from. Hey, Joe, I'm interested in a family farm who does this or that. Can you help me out? So he's made those connections, and I can buy from him. And it's not quite direct trade because I'm not buying directly from the farm, but it's more, I guess it's more convenient because he's done all the legwork of building those relationships, testing the quality, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's another avenue where it's more direct trade. So there's a co-op in Nicaragua called Gold Mountain Coffee Growers. And it started with a guy in the U.S. who bought a farm in Nicaragua and started enhancing their processes, where changing the way they grew their coffee, processed their coffee, all that stuff, and took their product from a commodity grade coffee to a specialty grade coffee. And there's a lot that goes into that. But in doing that, he was able to charge more for his coffee, charge a premium, and then put that money back into his process and keep building up his business.
Yeah.
He would then bring in the neighboring farms and created this co-op. He did the same for them. So before long, you have this collection of farms who are offering specialty coffee direct trade. So my dealings with him was, I'm going to pay you directly. You're going to handle the importing and exporting with your own team, because he had a team here in the U.S. and then also in Nicaragua. And that's like direct trade relationship coffee. Those are more expensive, but sometimes they're like way more exciting, like exotic flavor profiles, higher quality sometimes, more of a connection with the farmer because you're not separated by an importer.
Right.
So those are the two main ways that we would buy coffee.
I can definitely see how that would be exciting.
Yeah.
So I guess you, at some point, you started to really gain some traction to the point where you could get a space.
Yeah. So, I guess it was December of 2015. A friend of mine, approached me about partnering up and helping me take those next steps forward. And
so up to that point, you were all handling everything by yourself.
Yeah. It was me, and my wife, Jana, was helping me. Yeah. She would help me work the farmer's market table. She would do our social media, all that kind of stuff. And it was on a very small scale.
So
but
you were already Railway at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did the name come up?
A brainstorming session right in there at the table. I had a notebook. I probably still have the notebook with just pages of horrible name ideas. Mm-hmm. And that one stuck with me because I wanted something that spoke to the history of Ruston without being just Ruston coffee. Like I wanted something a little bit different. And if you know anything about the history of Ruston, you know, like it was built up around the railroad.
Right.
And I think without that, then who knows what else wouldn't have come here, whether it's tech or general population or businesses.
Yeah, I mean, everybody sees the railroad track that goes east and west, but there used to be one that went north and south as well. Right.
So, yeah, just I had a small test sample of people. I said, here's my top 3. What do you like? And Railway was the winner. So, we liked it.
Yeah. I mean, it fit very well, like you said, for Ruston, for sure. So you approach one of your friends and
so he and I would bounce everything off him. He was he enjoyed coffee as well, and throughout the whole process, I'm like, hey, this is what I'm doing now. And so when he approached me, is like, hey, I want to partner with you and maybe take that next step. It was like, cool, let's do this, and it gave me some renewed energy. And I think that's something that I learned early on is like, it's very hard to do anything on your own. Even if it, if it looks like you're the front man or woman, like, or whatever, you need to have your support system. And so to be able to learn that early on was key. And I think that's something I'll take with me forever, is to make sure that whatever it is I'm doing, being very deliberate about building and maintaining that support staff or system, not a staff, support system. So December 2015 is where we are at this point. Within the next few months, we got to talking like we want to be part of the city. With Ronnie Walker being elected mayor a little bit before that. I think it was 15. He brought this energy to the city that I think it had lacked forever.
No doubt.
And he built up his staff, and he just started doing things. And it's like, we have to be part of that energy in the city. And so we found a building on Mississippi where we ended up buying the building and opening up our first shop down there. It was a long time ago. It was Bailey Jewelers.
Okay.
And during construction, this old man came walking up the sidewalk, and he's like, I don't know how old he is, but he was moving slow, and we're like trying to see, does he need help? What is he looking for? He comes straight in, and I'm like, I'm sorry, sir. You know, like, we're working on construction. It's kind of dangerous. And he's like, no. This was my building. I'm Mr. Bailey. And he sees the old safe that's still in there and starts tearing up. He's like, that's our old safe that we had like way back many years ago. And I used to come in when I was a kid and like play in the floor over here. And this is where my dad would do this. And he's like, I'm like, I got chills right now, but he's just painting this picture of what it used to be. And so we start telling him, well, we're going to roast coffee in here. And at the time we were just going to roast coffee, and I'll get to that in a minute, but we're kind of telling him what we're doing. Like, and he was just so thrilled to see somebody bringing life back to that building. So he would come in like throughout the rest of the construction process and bring us old pictures of what the space used to look like. And if you need the combination to that safe, I can probably find it somewhere.
And this is the spot on West Mississippi?
Yeah.
And what was it? Was it empty whenever y'all got it?
It was empty, I think, for 20 or so years before we got it.
Wow.
I don't know what it was before that, like after Bailey, before it was empty.
Which is crazy to think about now, because you go through there and like literally every building downtown.
Yeah, there's so much life in there.
In there.
Yeah.
But I guess that was kind of a forgotten side street if you didn't.
Oh, for sure.
Go to campus or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And we even saw that after we opened up, is like you had to kind of retrain people that there was a street there, or that they could stop there. Yeah. Or they could park somewhere else and walk to there. Right. You know, that's always an issue downtown. Yeah. But
man, if I could hammer that into Tech's college students, like, dude, buy a bike, park downtown for free, and ride your bike to campus.
No doubt.
You will save so much money and get a little exercise as well.
Yep.
But yeah, so you got that spot, and y'all are planning on just roasting?
Yeah. So that's all we were doing at the time before this building came up. We were just roasting and still doing farmers markets, trying to get into some wholesale spots, like different retail stores around the area.
So were you like selling bulk coffee to people at the farmers market, or was it just like a, hey, come get a cup of coffee?
We were selling bags, like a 12-ounce bag.
Yeah.
So with the farmers market, you have cottage laws. You don't have to follow all the, like the full-blown health codes and stuff, because I guess farmers market has an umbrella that they work with cottage companies, especially as you're just starting. Like, you don't have the means to go through and buy all this equipment or have a space that's commercially zoned and commercial kitchen and all that stuff. So there were some hiccups along the way, and there's some things that, like, we got slapped on the hand a few times. Because I just didn't know any better. We were moving so fast, and you're trying to keep up with demand and put bags on shelves and put bags in people's hands, and you end up doing stuff that's not up to code, and they don't let you do that very long. Yeah. So learned a lot of good lessons, but yeah, so at the time we were just roasting, and I guess it was halfway through the construction process. So maybe about spring of 16, we were having a few conversations on the side. Like, one conversation was some people, I think it was people with the CVB or the city. They had mentioned they had a consultant come in and kind of helping them rebrand the city.
Gotcha.
And they mentioned, you guys need a coffee shop downtown. And the people at the CVB knew that we were buying the building and going to roast. And they kind of said, hey, like, is there any way you'd consider being a full coffee shop? I was like, I don't know. Maybe not. And then other people would kind of share a similar message.
I guess what was the thought behind not? Like, what was the thought behind just owning a building downtown and just roasting?
Yeah, well, to be honest, we were supplying Parish Press at the time, and it was like we're just going to roast. We didn't necessarily want to jump in and compete with them.
Yeah.
And it was never really my intention to be combative or to be, to have any conflict with them at all. It just, our plans evolved around purely like, we're downtown. We have a lot of people who want us to be a full coffee shop, and it's going to be kind of, I feel like we're going to miss an opportunity if we're in here roasting and people are passing by and they're like, hey, like, I want a cup of coffee, and we have to tell them no all the time.
Yeah.
So,
I can see how that would be a problem.
yeah.
That was a question that I had. Like, obviously, or Railway is one of 2 local coffee shops, as well as, I guess there's the Depot as well.
Yeah.
But I guess it's maybe more of a ministry.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's the Starbucks, but I guess the Depot was already there whenever y'all got there. Parish Press was already existing.
Yeah.
So I get it's funny to me, like, you still had so much demand, apparently.
Yeah.
That you were still able to push, even though you had other local coffee shops.
Yeah. I think no matter what you're doing, like, even if you're in the same space as someone else, you're going to have your own little spin on it.
Yeah.
And so what we were doing at the time that was unique to any of the other local shops is that we were roasting our own beans. And that gives you a lot of flexibility to really be creative and, buy the beans that you want, roast them the way that you want them, highlight certain countries and flavor profiles, create your own blends. And from a business standpoint, it kind of cuts out the supplier. If you are your own supplier, it can be better business wise.
Yeah. I see what you're saying there.
But for me, it was more like the roasting was an art, a mixture of science and art, and it just became a passion for me. So to be able to mix that with a coffee shop, it was exciting and overwhelming. And so halfway through the construction, we're like, well, we're going to make the decision to now change our whole plan, which means we got to start looking at equipment that we weren't planning on looking at. We have to maybe change our layout a little bit. We're going to need furniture. We're going to need a staff, because if we were just roasting, I was going to do that, and we wouldn't really need a staff.
Right, yeah.
But to be a coffee shop in a college town, you got to be open late-ish. You want to employ people and build a team, so you're going to have employees. And so we were just thrust into this fast. Okay, we have to answer a lot of questions pretty quickly and try to get open quickly. So, 2, I think I've loved everyone that has been on our staff at some point. Now, that's not to say that we haven't had issues or conflict or sometimes, because I think that's always going to happen with life. But I see my staff, or my alumni, I call them, as like little, little leaves that can fall off of my tree and go spread where they're going to spread. So, and we can talk about some of them in a minute.
Yeah, for sure.
But 2 key people that we hired early on. The first was Marianne McClure. She was in the entrepreneurship program at the time, and I was asked to come speak to a class for some reason. I wasn't doing anything yet. And I'm like, I don't know why you want me to come speak, but I will. So she was in the class, and I was talking about coffee, and she was working on a project that involved some kind of a coffee brewer. And she was asking questions, and like she was engaged, and I was like, I need to talk to her and see if she wants a job. So I reached out to her, and we interviewed her a few times, and she was our first hire. So shout out to Marianne. She's in, I can't say where she is right now, but she's somewhere.
Touche.
And then a guy named Matt Cassidy contacted me on Instagram. And at the time, he was a manager at Rhino in Shreveport.
Okay.
And we had kind of like, how you meet people on Instagram, like you've never met them before, but you've liked each other's stuff or whatever. Yeah. So we met on Instagram, and he calls me one day. He's like, hey, I've been following you for a while, and I saw where y'all are like working on building a building. I don't know if you're looking for a staff, but I'd be interested to talk to you. So same process. We kind of interviewed him for a while, and then felt like he'd be a great fit because he had experience where none of us. Marianne had experience in a kind of a coffee shop tea room in India over like a college mission trip.
Okay.
But to have the opportunity to bring someone on with coffee shop managerial experience was huge for us. So he helped a lot with, setting a menu and implementing a training program and, everything that goes into preparing to open up the coffee shop. Because me, like, I knew how to roast kind of well enough to sell coffee. I felt like that's something I kept trying to learn at and perfect my craft or just improve it over time. But the coffee shop side was totally foreign to me. I had no idea what I was getting into. So, without those two people, I don't know that we would have been able to do it.
Yeah. So, obviously looking at the history of it and knowing some of your staff previously, you had a lot of college kids, all college kids?
Not all. So probably early on, it was all college kids except for like me and Matt and maybe one or two others.
So I guess my thought here is like, your time with your staff is limited to some degree.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, so I'm a dreamer and I can paint a big picture. And if I'm not extroverted naturally. So if you put me in a mixer or a party, like I'm not going to go mingle and just have small talk conversations with a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But if I can connect with somebody and get to like heart and soul level, I'll paint a big picture and I think, had some people who saw the picture and saw what my vision was and believed in it, which is great. Like you need that for a business or any kind of venture that you're going to do where you need some people to buy in with you. But we hit a little season where I was looking around at our staff and I'm like, these are some great people and I don't want to lose anybody ever. I want to nail them down. My vision was to grow and to be kind of like Onyx, who's in Fayetteville, Arkansas. They have a handful of locations in Northwest Arkansas, and then they are probably by now they're world-renowned coffee roaster. They've had some people compete in national competitions for roasting and barista, and they have a huge nationwide wholesale program. So that was kind of my role model, if you will.
Yeah.
And so I'm painting this picture like, dude, we could do this, and this, and we could grow together. And if we grow to that point, then we'll have some full-time jobs available, hopefully, for a staff that can kind of be a core. Mm-hmm. And I really started working on that and pushing that prematurely. I think it's great to have that vision, but we just weren't there yet. And then that group of people, I think they probably got frustrated with the timeline of it because it's just not going to happen quickly. And most of them were coming up on graduation pretty soon. And we were having conversations like, hey, I'm going to graduate and this is my field of study. And I know I can get a job starting out making X. Yeah. And like, I'm going to have to do that.
Yeah.
If Railway can't pay me that.
Right.
And I'm like, well, at first it was frustrating to all sides. I think they were frustrated with me. I was frustrated at the idea that like, I'm going to have to pay them this, which I can't, or they're going to leave. But I will say those people I've been able to circle back and have conversations with afterwards and be like, look, man, you helped me learn an important thing is that taking on that mentality of what you mentioned, they're going to be here for a set amount of time. So I started telling people like, this is a 2-year gig max. Some people come to us at the beginning of their little window of 2 years. Some people would come to us a year and a half into their window. It's like, hey, you're going to be here for 6 months, and then you're going to reach a point where this is not for you anymore because of what we were able to pay, the nature of the job. A lot of people are working towards graduation or they have internships or whatever, just life.
Yeah.
So that helped me have the mindset of I don't need to try to keep anybody hostage or keep people forever. What I need to do is continually build a pipeline, like, like Alabama football.
Yeah.
Every year they're competitive in the top 5. Sorry, LSU people, but I mean, LSU's there this year. But to be able to just reload instead of having to rebuild. So taking that mentality of like, we're going to build you up and then we're going to send you out and you're going to go do great things. And then we're going to bring those next people up to fill your hole.
Well, it's like, I guess I had that thought, like, because of who I've seen work there and like, so-and-so's friend gets them in, that kind of deal.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, to hear you say like you were trying to build a pipeline, that could all make sense now. I guess you mentioned like, you were catching some people at the very end of their window. Like, were you still hiring those people for 6 or whatever months?
Yeah. I think the shortest period we ever had somebody was like over a summer.
Yeah.
And this person was great, and I probably would have done it again, but I would tell other people, like, from then on, it was like 6 months. If you got 6 months, we can work with that.
Yeah. But like you said, I mean, obviously being in college, things can, you hit a hard quarter or whatever, and it's like, man, I got to quit my job to finish school.
Yeah.
I guess it's hard for me to wrap my head around that, but I guess you did solve your own problem by creating a little pipeline there where you were, I guess, were you always hiring? Were you always looking?
Pretty much.
People?
We were always taking resumes, and we got a ton of resumes, and I know there's a lot of people out there that never got a call, and I am sorry about that. Like, but there's no way that we could have possibly contacted every person who sent us a resume.
Yeah.
So we just kept them and called people when we needed to. But the best way we got people is like current employees saying, "Hey, my such and such sent you a resume. I think they'd be a great fit here."
For sure.
And like we were flexible too. If someone had a busy quarter and they could only work 12 hours a week, then cool. If you can work less than that, like we had one girl who took a whole quarter off where she didn't work for us, and then she came back and started working again the next quarter. So we try to be flexible as much as we could, and there was always this dilemma of we want to have enough people to where we can be flexible, but not too many people to where no one gets the hours they need, right? So it was always a moving target.
No doubt. So you open up the coffee shop on West Mississippi, and how long were you there for before you? I guess you started to like create a menu and food and everything there, or is it just coffee?
It was just coffee at first, and then I mean we had like muffins and cookies and little breakfast stuff like that, but none of the
all like locally sourced.
No, not at first. No, that was something that we were missing. So, I mean, it was just from a food service provider.
Yeah.
So it wasn't great, and people would tell us, and I'm like, yeah, I understand. And so we would try to. You can't possibly jump every time someone tells you to jump, but
right.
if you have something that becomes a consistent feedback, you start to address it. So, but we didn't address that until probably more recently, within like a year and a half, 2 years ago. And that was when Emily Allen joined us. And at first she was just baking everything. Over time, she became our manager there, over both locations. But when she came on and started putting out her own homemade baked stuff, like people could tell, and we could tell too. Like we were moving so much more food through there, and it became a better complement to the coffee than just like this muffin that nobody cares about that came from U.S. Foods or whatever. Right. Sorry.
Yeah. So I guess it was really starting to pick up some steam there, huh?
Yeah. So that first year was tough. We opened up in October of 2016, and that, more than halfway through that first fall quarter, and it felt like by then people already kind of had their patterns. Whether even people that weren't in school at Tech, people kind of have their patterns by that point in the year. So that first year, getting through that spring was kind of tough. We learned a lot. We had way too many people on staff, so we ended up having to downsize our staff and let some people go, and that wasn't a fun deal. And they didn't do anything wrong. It was just like we got too many people.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So then by that next summer, heading into that fall of 17, I felt like we really hit our stride. People knew we were downtown. We had time to learn how to improve our roasting skills, improve our employee management, get the right fit in there, kind of get a good scheduling system, all those things that come with running a business. So the fall of 17 was really, I think, the start of a peak for us. And it was fun being downtown. Even if, the biggest complaint we got down there was it's too small and there's nowhere to park. And we're like, yeah, we know, but we can't really do anything about it. So
you ever been to Ruston?
Yeah.
It's too small and there's nowhere to park.
Yeah.
It should be our motto.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But I think it was around that time also that, I guess up till that time, I was learning about myself too. Because going back to when I was roasting, it was all about roasting the coffee. And I did enjoy, being intentional about where I was buying it from, but I just wanted to roast high quality coffee. And I wasn't really thinking about building a team. And then even when we started building a team, I'm like, okay, well, Matt and Marianne are running the shops and I'm roasting, and I was still working for my dad at the time as well. So I wasn't in the shop like all the time.
Yeah. That's wild. So you
It
didn't
was
fully
too
commit
much.
to it.
No.
At that point, I guess.
And I can't really say why. I guess I thought in my head, like, I can't afford to pay myself. So I have to keep earning a paycheck from my dad.
Yeah.
And I think some of it too is, his business was kind of in a weird position at that point where I felt like I needed to help him. Not that I was highly skilled at construction or anything, but he just I felt like he needed me to stay and help him. He would never say that.
Yeah.
And I don't think if he heard that, he'd probably be like, hey, you could have left. Like,
right.
But that was just the way I was processing stuff. But what really hit me though is, like, over that first year, I just changed. Something changed within me that it was no longer about the coffee. I still wanted to make good coffee, but it became more about the people. And what I learned is that if I truly take the time to invest in the people that work for me, a lot of stuff happens. They feel valued as a person and as an employee. They'll show up to work on time, to open up the shop at 5:30 a.m. I can count on one hand how many times we had somebody be late. And if it happened, it would happen one time with that person. They would never do it again. College students get a bad rap about, like, their work ethic sometimes. I'm like, we never had those problems overall. So they work hard. They take ownership of the job. They take ownership of what I tried to put out as our mission and our vision and values for how we wanted to conduct ourselves. They would take ownership of it in a way that if they were talking about it to someone, it wasn't like, well, yeah, Michael wants us to say this or Matt wants me to say this. It was, I'm saying this because I feel it and I believe it, and this is my place that you're coming into.
Yeah.
And so I always appreciated that. And then in turn, they would, if I'm investing in them in that way, those things are happening, but then they're also turning around and investing in our customers that come in and the community at large, even if it's people that don't drink coffee. I felt like, our staff did a great job of just taking care of people, however that looked.
Well, this just clicked for me. So, whenever you did the podcast with Kendrick Jones, the last one, I was there. It was at Railway. And I think it was something that he said at some point, was talking about you, in that you weren't just a boss, and that you asked, how he was, and hey, how are you really, kind of deal. And it's like, I guess, because I've seen it, I've heard it, Michael Davis created this incredible community around Railway, and it's just like, I've been trying to grasp that, I guess. And it all makes sense now, I guess. And
Cool.
like you were, yeah, you investing in your employees in that manner, and not just hey, here's an extra $20 or whatever. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like a serious caring deal. You know,
Mm-hmm.
how are you? How are you doing? You know, how's the grades? How's mom and dad?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it makes sense that those people that worked for you cared about where they worked,
Yeah.
and you know, keeping things clean and
Yeah.
nice and orderly, and like you say, like wanting to spread the message of railway and what it is and what it meant.
Mm-hmm.
So that, yeah, that again, that's just a realization that I'm having right now. But
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty cool.
It's humbling for me, like to hear them say that, because I know I do want to have an impact on them. But sometimes I feel like, am I even making any difference? Am I doing this right? Am I screwing up every day? I think that's natural for people to feel that way, but it just kept me grounded, and it kept me engaged, and it gave me energy to be plugged in with those people. And honestly, I think I got just as much out of those relationships as hopefully they did.
Yeah.
They were able to pour back into me, and there were times where those conversations would turn from them, and they're like, well, how are you? How are your kids? How's Jana doing? How is this thing that's going on? And that's invaluable. And that takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes intentionality, but I think it's worth it.
It almost sounds like, you know, you knew that you had a learning curve to achieve there, like almost from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and you were willing to do that, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and you weren't stubborn about it. And sounds like that carried over into the whole community, caring
Mm-hmm.
about their employees and
Yeah.
learning how to treat employees and all that stuff. I'm sure all that's a learning curve. I know
Yeah.
it has been for me, just to, like, you know, be a leader around people or whatever.
Right.
It's not something. Yeah, there are people that are bred to do it or whatever, but you still have to kind of fall on your face to really learn
Yeah.
it, I think.
Yeah. And I think if you're doing anything in the public view, people are going to be watching. You never know sometimes who's watching. And I think,
Big facts.
yeah.
I mean, it's happened more to me recently in the past like 2 weeks. Like,
Uh-huh.
hey, are you Dan-Mabry?
Uh-huh.
I watch your podcast. Like, and that's, again, like you say, it's like a humbling thing. It's like, wow, I appreciate you, like, appreciating me, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's humbling, and then it brings like a sense of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, okay, these people are looking at me, or whatever. I'm leading, or I'm just producing content and speaking to an audience, and I need to make sure it's worth their while, right?
Yeah.
And make sure I'm conducting myself properly.
Yeah,
So.
definitely. So at some point you got into, moved like across the street,
Yeah.
which that looked like it was a big undertaking
It was.
to begin with.
Yeah. So, where are we in the timeline? 17.
Yeah.
So this must have been like, around the fall, winter of 17. A couple things were on the table. The nest location was being developed, and my dad knew the guy who was developing the property, and the guy had mentioned to him that he wanted a coffee shop in there. So my dad was like, hey, maybe y'all should talk.
I know a guy.
Yeah. And then, so that was on the table. And during this season, between like maybe November and February, March of 2018, my current partners and I, I don't want to make it sound weird. It's just, how to put it. We ended up they got bought out by a new set of partners. So, after these new partners bought in around spring, summerish of 2018, that's when all the new projects started, as far as
exploded.
Yeah, let's do this lease at the nest and build out a shop there. And then maybe like halfway through that process, we see across the street at Park Avenue, where Railway is now, this sign go up for lease. And my partners are like, hey, should we go look at that? I'm like, I don't know if we, I mean, I don't know. No? Yeah? It'd be fun. So anyway, long story short, we went and looked at it because it sat there for like 6 weeks with the sign up, and we both felt like kind of got to look at it and see what it is, and decided to go ahead and make that move over there. It was probably like triple or more, quadruple the space as the old shop on Mississippi. We felt like it had more visibility being there on that main stretch, Railroad Park. A little bit better parking situation. Still, I mean, you're still downtown.
Still limited, yeah.
But it was just really appealing. And then what ended up happening is we had a lot of moving pieces and parts. We were roasting at the time in just a warehouse just outside the city. And we were roasting in the old Mississippi building when it was still the coffee shop. So when all the dust settled, we had the Nest north of town with the drive-through. We had the new downtown spot on Park Avenue, and then we moved our big roasting equipment into the old shop on Mississippi. So we had the two shops, and then we had the one roasting location. So it was a lot. I mean, it was a lot to try to pull off all at the same time.
Yeah.
We ended up shutting down like right before Christmas, shutting down the old shop so that we could make the move during those couple weeks between Christmas and New Year's. It's a slow time anyway because people are gone and whatever. So then we ended up opening up the new downtown spot and the Nest in the same week. I think one was on whatever weekday, Tuesday or so, and then the next was on that Saturday. And it was just a daze, man. Like, I can't remember much about that stretch because it was like once you start something like that, you open back up and you just flooded with people and they're excited to come back and see you again. And then what we found is that we were having more people come in downtown than we could ever imagine coming into the old downtown spot on Mississippi. So we had kind of planned for like, we're going to move this business here and then we're going to make a new one up north of town. But what it felt like in reality was two brand new businesses.
Yeah.
With brand new customer flows and kind of the same busy hours, but just more intense.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this. The Park Avenue store is much more inviting than the West Mississippi one was.
Right.
And again, it all comes down to how small it was.
Right.
But it's just, same thing that, kept the antiqueness of the building and the realness of what it is or what it used to be. And obviously, like you said, there's just a lot more room in there to move around, to sit, to plug your computer in, whatever.
Yeah.
I guess that was another staffing issue, huh? Like you had to.
Yeah, kind of. Although for the most part, we could run that space with the same amount of staff as we ran the old space.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the Nest and the drive-through, like we ended up basically doubling our staff, and then as we kind of hit a normal stride, some people were leaving anyway, and we ended up having to just let some people go again because, like, hey, we don't have the hours to go around for everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's not ever fun. I mean, that's like the worst type of conversation you can have with somebody.
No doubt. That's I've had to let some people go myself, and it's never a good time.
No.
Never something you look forward to.
No, not at all.
So, where do we go from there? Obviously, things were going good there for a little while for you.
Mm-hmm.
And hit some troubled waters at some point.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that. I told you before, I can't go into detail on a lot of it. But yeah, I guess it was the end of September is when all these things started getting put into motion officially. I can talk about some of the hardships of running a business. I mean, from an outsider's perspective, someone looks at what Railway did. We opened up 2 new spots in a week in a small town that already had a couple of other local coffee shops as well.
Mm-hmm.
that's hard. There's a lot of money and effort involved in buying new furniture, building this new space out. So we were already kind of behind the eight ball in a sense. Whereas I felt like when we started the old space on Mississippi in 2016, we had a couple of years of momentum, and that momentum was erased and starts over, at least from a business standpoint, not necessarily from a community and customer standpoint.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, financial stress, business stress from those moves that, just going to take a while to get over the hump. And there were, there's always other things going on beneath the surface that I think that's probably true with any situation where there's people involved. I mean, people are messy.
Yeah.
Even if you think you're doing everything just right, you're probably just as messy as anyone else that's involved.
Yeah,
so
you have to have people close to you call you out sometimes.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're keeping yourself in check.
Yeah, and I think they're like the key. If you're gonna have people call you out, like it needs to be someone that you trust and that you know has your best interest, and they're not just being critical for the sake of being critical.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely people that are trying to be productive about it, and people that are haters, if you will.
Yeah. Haters gonna hate.
That's right.
So, yeah, I guess it was the end of September, like I said, when it became apparent that things were going to change drastically for Railway and for me personally. So within that week, I was looking for a new job, and then also potentially dealing with the potential of not even being an owner at Railway anymore. At the time, I wasn't majority owner, but I was founder, co-owner, etc. But through some of the partnerships and stuff that played out, I was not majority owner anymore. So, you still have input, but if there's ever a I vote this way, you vote this way, the majority rules. Yeah. So it became clear that, okay, things are changing drastically, and I am in a position where I'm going to look for a new job, and I might not even retain any ownership of the company. And that was a hard pill to swallow. And it's still hard because, I poured my heart and soul into it. Yeah. So, I think to paint an illustration without sharing any details, I mean, if you have an organization like that where people are close knit, it kind of feels like a family. And even in some families, like there can be some heated disagreements, and there can be some things that cause a family to separate, and, you look at, I've had some people kind of ask me, why are you giving up on this, or why are you choosing to leave? And my answer is like, it's more complicated than that. It's so not just black and white.
Was your choice to leave?
Technically, yeah.
I mean, obviously it sounds like you were kind of put in that position.
Yeah.
But, maybe your opinion was being diminished, or your power of choice was being diminished, I guess.
Yeah, and I can't really go into the details of the negotiations around how the things were going to fall out, but there were options on the table. So I would say, like, from if you're looking at it as an outsider, if there were options on the table and this was the choice, then, without knowing all the details and without sharing the details, like, you can kind of understand that maybe there was a whole lot more under the surface that led to that decision.
Well, and, it goes back to why I even contacted you. Like, again, me and Michael did not have a relationship before this day, and I did not know him, and he did not know me, and I literally saw his impact as to him leaving and like 10 employees leaving, and all these college kids were just like quitting their jobs in the middle of the quarter, and I was like, what is going on here? And and I hear, Michael Davis is leaving, and there's some stuff going on, blah blah blah, and I'm just like, I have never been in a position that my boss was leaving and I was like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah.
So I think that we keep bringing it back up, but it really speaks to the community, the family that you built there, and just the trust and love that you clearly created with a lot of people. And like I said, that's what got my attention. It was not something that you did necessarily. I guess it was, but it wasn't like you went out on social media or anything like that. So I'm always looking for different people to talk to, and it's almost like this story just like fell in my lap. It was like, hey, look at this, and it's unlike anything that I've ever seen, I guess.
Yeah, and it's Ruston is small enough anyway, and I think if something happens, like, you're automatically under a microscope. But I think what you're saying, like, it would be easy to sit here and try to take a certain path with this conversation, and for me to, I'm still looking for a job, and I have a family, and I got a wife and 3 kids, and we're coming up on the holiday season, and there's certain expectations there, and we're sitting here in my house that I have to pay for.
Yeah.
So it'd be very easy to just sit here and mope and get bitter and whatever, but I come back to a couple things. I've told several people this, like, even though it was just for a season, we did what we set out to do. Like, no, we didn't turn it into this big multi-million-dollar company. But as far as what became my mission which was to invest in my people and then help them invest in this community and then make an impact, like, that's what we set out to do. And I think we did that. And I think, you see the impact. You reference the people that have decided to leave and go do something else. I think that speaks volumes for just the connection that we had, and I'm thankful for those connections. And I think that should be a takeaway, is that you might be one person, but you never know who you're going to be able to impact, and how that impact is going to then ripple out into whatever they go and do next. Even the people who naturally just left before any of this happened, like, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to go work at Origin Bank, Elise, or I'm going to leave Railway under some weird circumstances and go work at some other coffee shops, and then I'm going to float around, and then now I'm going to open up Standard Coffee in Monroe with Corey Barr, Mac Blades.
Yeah, I just met Mac this past weekend, actually. I'm going to try to get him on here.
So our alumni is doing lots of cool stuff that I get to say, like, that person worked for me for a season, and hopefully they grew in some way.
Yeah. Well, and like, I've never worked in a coffee shop, but it's like, it's clearly a skill that's transferable. Because like, I see Kendrick like working in Phoenix at a coffee shop. It's just like, you can just like fall right into that somewhere else. You got anybody else you want to shout out, alumni, I guess?
Man, I put myself in a hole there. I have a whole list. Let me think. Some notable. Bailey Braddock is in Fayetteville working for Mountain Bird Coffee. He's doing wholesale for those guys. There's tons of other people who are just taking their next step, whether it's finishing school, like JG, you mentioned him earlier. He actually came to me a few months ago and was like, hey dude, I have to quit my job because I got to graduate on time and take advantage of this TOPS money that's coming in that has a deadline on it. One other person from our early staff, Macy Sutherland, she went off to go to med school. So I think she's almost done and almost a doctor. And I gave her a hard time. I was like, "Are you sure you want to go be a doctor and not a barista forever?" And there's people who moved across the country. Like I forget where all they've moved off to, but our reach. I need to sit down and make a list of where everybody is and what they're doing.
Yeah.
There's a couple, Ryan Burton and Sarah Peterson. They're both in Shreveport now. They're about to get married pretty soon, February 15th, I think. And they're teaching in 2 different schools over there. So they're impacting young lives, the next generation of kids. Chandler Haddix or Chandler Burkhalter, Burke.
Yeah.
She's here in town. She's doing yoga instructing. I think she's still doing some stuff at Blue Sky and then teaching at Row. But David Michael, her husband, is going to do PT. I think that's right. So
yeah,
we'll see where he ends up. But yeah, the list goes on, man.
Yeah, it's cool that you see that you made an impact there, but you also like created other people's love of coffee.
Yeah.
To degree. Like with Mac and the other guy that you mentioned, like
yeah,
you're like furthering the process.
Yeah, and the cool thing with that is like even if they don't go and open up a coffee shop or whatever, Kendrick is out there doing Hillsong and he's able to work at a coffee shop. He has those skills to use to earn some money while he's still kind of in a transitioning stage
Right.
of figuring out what's next within that Hillsong program.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I think it's a cool thing that coffee can be a career for some people in the right area, or it can just be a thing that helps you connect while you're trying to figure out what's next.
Yeah.
Whether you're in school or not in school or what have you, like there's any possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely, Morgan Potts.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did a gnarly pop up at the West
Yep.
Mississippi store one time. I don't think that she ever worked for you, but she works at a coffee shop in Austin now.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's a good point. That's like it's a nice transition job.
Mm-hmm.
You can kind of bounce in and out of if you had to.
Right.
All right, so you said it. You're a dreamer. What's next? What's on the plate? You got it. Obviously, you mentioned your financial concerns and taking care of your family, but do you have anything else stirring?
There's a lot stirring. So, for the last couple months since all this went down, I've made a list of people and places in the community that I've felt like I need to go talk to. And it started as like, hey, I want to come work for you. Can you hire me? Here's what I want to do. It's like, man, we're rooting for you. We don't have anything. Keep in touch. But there's been an evolution even in that. So where I'm landing right now, there's a few things that are still kind of vague, but one big thing that I'd love to do is to coach and consult, maybe as a paid gig, people who are starting something, or even if they have a business and they have a team component and they're like, man, we're seeing so much turnover, or we can't get the buy-in from people to really believe in what we're doing here. Like I've done that before, and I can hopefully bring some value there. So
yeah, you definitely have some concrete experience there.
So that's one thing I'd like to do. I want to be a part of the continued building of this community. I mentioned Ronnie earlier. There's a lot of energy that he brings, and then he's inspired people like myself to invest in Ruston and to start things here, to live here, to have kids here. So I want to continue being a part of that somehow.
Yeah, and obviously, like President Geis is also pushing Louisiana Tech at the same time. And obviously all that feeds in together. So.
Yeah. So I'd love to be involved with tech somehow. I don't know what that looks like, whether it's maybe teaching one day. I've always kind of had that in the back of my mind. Like it'd be cool to go back and teach one day at some point when I'm not doing railway anymore. So here we are. So I've reached out to some of those people there. But as far as starting something new, I think that might be paused for me right now just because of life circumstances and family and all that.
That's understandable. It seems like you've been put through the ringer kind of the past couple months. So maybe you need to take a step back and let things flesh out.
Yeah, I think that's where we are. And people, people, as I talk to different people, they're like, man, I really think if you could figure out a way to do a little bit of all these things that you're interested in, and it keeps you moving, you don't really need all your income to come from one spot. And people are even going so far as to say, like, I think that's the future of work. Like, gone are the days of people working for one place and going in every day from 8 to 5, and like that's what you do, and you work there for 30 years and you get the watch, and then you retire, and then you've hated it the whole time mostly. I read something, or I heard something the other day, that now people are changing careers, I think on average 5 times in their life, changing careers, not just jobs. So I think that's an indicator that, like, we don't have to figure out what we're going to do for the rest of our lives, like, right now.
Mm-hmm.
We can just keep, and what I've tried to, the mantra that I've tried to have is just keep walking through doors. And if they're open, take a walk through it. If it's not, then move on to the next one. And I don't know where it's going to land me yet. But I'm hopeful that I'll be able to continue building here and continue hopefully having an impact.
I'm very much with you there. I'm very much a take the opportunity that's given to you, and the next one will come around at some point. If you obviously you can't just sit on the couch and do nothing, but
Yeah.
You keep putting yourself out there. You keep chasing whatever you're looking for. Something will happen. It's something that'll happen that you never even saw happening.
Right.
You chase one thing and you end up somewhere else, and that may be your niche or whatever. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, some of these doors that I'm trying to walk through right now, I would have never had the time to even consider doing it if I'm still doing railway, which, that, not that I want it to be done with railway necessarily, but I think the idea there being to take what could be such a negative thing and to turn it around and be like, okay, well, now I have all this time to figure out what I want to do next. And that's exciting.
I'm definitely there right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some regular listeners may know, but I guess 3 weeks now, I quit my job and sold my house. And last Friday, I had the opportunity to go film a fight. One of my friends was doing MMA in Shreveport, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning after the fight's over, and we're like up in the hotel room, and it hit me at that point. Like, everybody's winding down, and I was like, dude, if you went to work today, like, if you hadn't quit your job, you would not be here right now. Like,
right.
You would not have 4 hours of footage from the past 2 weeks of, like, leading up to this. Like, and, it's like you say, there's nothing comforting about it, I guess. But at the same time, it's like just seeing that opportunities like that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't put in the work previously. So.
Right.
Well, I like your idea of kind of being somewhat of a business incubator or entrepreneur incubator type deal, and I think that's something that could definitely be useful here in Ruston. There's seemed to be an entrepreneurial market, and obviously there's all kinds of stuff that we don't even know about going on at Tech with technology and businesses. And
that is the truth. I talked to a few people there this week, and they're, I can't really share what they're working on, but some of the stuff, I mean, I was amazed just sitting there like open mouth, like, what? That's happening here at Tech.
Yeah.
And people, I mean, I grew up in Ruston, and we always had the mindset of, I don't know, so for some reason, like, this place was just too small to do anything cool or good, or that, Tech was cute and all, but if you really want to go to a real college, you got to go somewhere else. And I think that hopefully that mindset is changing. I mean, it's definitely changed for me. If I could go back and do it again, I would.
Same here.
But yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had that mindset for the longest time, growing up in West Monroe and then moving right over here to Ruston. And I joined a fraternity sophomore year of college and was basically there my freshman year of college. But I was just looking for the next hangout, the next party, and whenever you do that and everybody leaves, it's like, man, this place sucks.
Yeah.
But then you start looking around, you say that there's nothing to do around here, and if you literally, like, I mean, I think that what I'm doing with this podcast is easy to some degree, but it's the whole initial thing of putting yourself out there and you know, taking that first step, and it's like all these other avenues open up for you just because you put yourself out there to some degree. And I guess that's kind of been my mantra recently, is just like, put yourself out there. You know, the worst they can say is no, and that kind of deal. So I think making myself a creative, I've opened doors to meeting other creatives and other dreamers, and it's like, man, there are cool people around here.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just a bunch of college kids. You know, there are people who are moving and shaking and trying to make things happen, and it's been cool to see that, especially these past couple weeks. And like trying to think about like leaving and traveling, and like things keep popping up, like, all right, maybe you want to stay here a couple more days or another week or whatever to make this happen. And yeah, I guess that's kind of what I've been dealing with here recently.
That's a cool process. I mean, it sounds like, you know, you put yourself out there, and I feel like I put myself out there too. And like with that, you're kind of vulnerable to criticism. Yeah. Like, you should do this differently, or like whatever. And that can be distracting, or it can be debilitating if you let it be.
I think you much more so than me, because like I'm in control of this thing. You know? Like you are literally impacting the community and offering services to the community, and I could definitely see where people are like nitpicking you and saying, hey, this muffin sucks.
Sometimes, like, you know, you make a mistake, and I had to turn off my notifications on my phone because I'd get like a Google review email at 9 p.m. and I'd be like,
go to bed steaming.
Yeah. So I turn them all off. I mean, not that you want to ignore them, but like setting some boundaries to where it's not all consuming. Like, you're going to do your best, and sometimes you're going to come up short, and you learn from it and you move on. And I think a lot of people, I was thinking about this yesterday, like a lot of people think, take yourself, for example, they might assume, well, he must like have this extensive training and podcasting and using equipment, and maybe you have experience using the stuff, but maybe you don't have like a degree in podcasting, or I didn't work in a coffee shop before I started roasting. And if you're going to put yourself out there, you can take steps to learn, especially now with YouTube and books and just other people. As you start to build those relationships, most of the time, like, people are interested in helping other people.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you said it.
Yeah.
Especially, you know, whenever you have common interests or common goals, or, you know, even just interested in the same things, same community, whatever. Well, cool, man. Really appreciate you coming on and being willing to share. And
yeah, absolutely.
Really enjoyed it. Anything you want to wrap up with? Anything you want to shout out or anything?
Yeah, well, there's some things happening in the community that I can't really talk about yet, but maybe follow me on the social media and I'll keep you posted there. Just Mike S. Davis on the Twitter and Instagram. I'm going to try to be more active there and kind of share what's next for me and what's next for some other people that I'm connected with. So
sweet. Well, thanks again, and hopefully we can catch up with you down the road.
Sounds good.
Awesome.